Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Destination Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Stoker. Really excited for today's episode, and we have a guest coming up, and I'll bring him in just a few minutes. I wanted to talk about something that's been on my mind lately, and I actually had a recent semi disagreement with someone in the industry about this on my LinkedIn page. I've obviously talked a lot about AI and the impact that AI is having on our industry and the impact it could have on our future as an industry. And I mentioned to you guys in a previous episode that I had been trying out Claude Cowork. And there's, by the way, Perplexity and several other AI platforms have made progress in the last 2 months that, like, we're already living in a world that I never could have imagined that we're living in, right? And as I think about that, the last 3 weeks for me has just been transformative of what I even believe can be done by AI and what I believe I have the ability to do. And it's been really fascinating. And as I've talked more and more about AI, I kind of am seeing that there's a few different groups forming. One of the groups when it comes to AI is in wait and see mode. It's, hey, this is all really cool, but I'm going to use it when they get all the bugs figured out and when they get it to where it's really easy to use. And that's one group of people. And then another group of people is, I'm on the front end of this thing. I want to try everything. I want to learn everything. I want to stay on the forefront. You also have a group that is somewhat in the middle, trying to decide how invested to get. Because, for example, all of us in 2021, when this technology first came out, maybe it was 2022, can't remember now, it feels like a lifetime ago. But when it all came out, ChatGPT was most people's primary AI tool that they were using. And that's why ChatGPT actually took over so much of the consumer market, is because they were first. And a lot of people used ChatGPT early on, had a bad experience, saw it hallucinate and say something about the destination that was completely untrue, which, by the way, happened a lot back then, and decided, okay, you know what, AI isn't that accurate, and so now it's going to be really difficult to get them to jump back on board. So all of that to say, we've got these different groups of people and their level of adoption. And I made a post on LinkedIn the other day where I talked about the future of trip planning is going to look a lot more like someone putting all their context into AI, whatever their AI platform of choice is, and saying, okay, where should I book this trip? And not only will they get ideas from the LLM platform that they're using, they also will likely have the ability to book that trip within the LLM platform that they're using. And this is, for some destinations, this could be really, really exciting. And for other destinations, I think it could be really, really scary. And as I think about that, I think it's really important that all of us, as we look at what's happening next, the only way to know what's happening next is to know what's happening now. And the only way to know what's happening now is to try the tools and educate yourself on the tools, because only then can you start to see the future. I can tell you that the future is so much clearer to me today because of the work that I've done over the last 3 weeks with Claude Cowork than it ever was before. And the only reason I can see that is because I actually got in and tried the tools. And I did have someone comment on my LinkedIn when I made a post about that. And full disclosure, he's in the media industry and sells media as part of his role. And I could see how this would be a really scary concept for him with the way things are going. So I totally understand his kind of emotive response. But what he said was, "Oh yeah, well I just took the exact prompt that you said in your post. I put it into my AI platform of choice and got a completely ridiculous itinerary." And when he said that, the thing that stood out to me is, this is somebody who is going into that process wanting the AI to be wrong. And there's a lot of reasons that might be the case, but what we're not what we're not realizing in that scenario, and what this person didn't realize, is that he didn't put any of his personal context in there in order to get the correct answer from AI. And AI is only as good as the context that you give it on the front end. In fact, right before this call, me and a few members of my team, We have a workflow that is repeatable in our organization. And there's a couple ways to think about this. A lot of people, when they're trying to leverage AI to solve a workflow, they'll say, "Hey, I want to do this, help me do this." And then, and you get a level of quality of response from the AI tool that you're using. But what we said is we want to build this workflow into a repeatable skill. I'm going to give you all of the context that I have about this skill. And then I'm going to ask you to ask me questions to fill in the gaps on anything that I didn't give you that you need to perform this skill. And it was actually about a 45-minute exercise going back and forth with the AI tool to give it the context so that it could build a repeatable skill for me. Now, the person that commented on my LinkedIn page or on my LinkedIn post would never have gone through the 45 minutes that it took to get to the repeatable skill that has the context that it needs to have the accuracy that you're expecting when you're leveraging AI for a project like this. And so the urge that I would have for everyone that is listening is, number one, use the tools. If you're in the wait and see group, the time is over. Don't be in the wait and see group anymore. You need to try out the different tools that are available. Um, and I'm not going to tell you what the best tool is for you. For me, right now, it's Claude Cowork, and that may change. But for you, you have to try a bunch of different tools and see what's actually going to work for you. But number two, you have to understand context. And honestly, this may be what separates strategists and tacticians. And I know I've talked a lot on this show about the need for people to shift from tactician to strategist. And if we don't make that shift, it's going to be really difficult. Well, maybe a better definition of strategist for the future is someone who understands how to organize and synthesize context that allows the AI platforms to be able to execute on whatever project it is that you need help or support on. And I believe that every individual traveler is going to learn how to provide context to AI tools to get really accurate results on whatever it is, whether that's travel, whether that's shopping, whether that's planning for my retirement, or whatever it might be. Every individual consumer is going to learn how to provide that context. And we, as B2B users who are trying to set up our tools that are going to allow us to be more efficient in our work streams and workflows, we also have to understand how to provide context, because that's the difference between a tactician and a strategist. And that gap is going to continue to widen over time. And so context matters. And I think it's really, really important that all of us start learning how to provide enough context to where we are getting accurate answers from the AI tools that we're using, because we know we've leveraged them correctly. So with that, I would love to welcome in Aaron Jumper from Visit Cumberland Valley. And Aaron, I'm so grateful that you joined me today. I appreciate you taking some time.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the podcast.
Absolutely. So you and I have known each other for a while. And I guess, first of all, before we get too far into that, I'd love your reaction to my monologue there. And I want to know where you're at with your AI usage and context.
Yeah, AI has been something that I think you try to balance it out, right? Between trying to make sure that you're putting in your own thoughts, your own actions, but then also creating that ideation that you can always glean insights from. So trying to make sure that it's a balancing act amongst our team, but I have my preference, but then of course we've now, as an organization, have uh, gone to another route with another platform. So kind of trying out another AI platform. So in getting there on another one, but it's interesting just comparing the two and how the workflow works from one to the other, and you can see the differences amongst them between who's got their preferences, who uses ChatGPT, who uses Claude, and so it continues to evolve. And you mentioned it early on, just the advancements over the last few months from what we've seen from these AI platforms to where I'm assuming it can go in the next couple of months and years.
Yeah. Well, so tell me which one you switched to.
So we switched to Claude, and I was a Chat GPT user, and so we switched to the Claude as an organization, and I've found very impactful, just a broader sense of insights and um, answers from the prompts that I don't think I was receiving from ChatGPT. Not that I didn't find value from ChatGPT previously, but I think it's just like that learning curve of going from what you're used to a new platform and seeing the advancements that it has.
What's the coolest thing you've done with Claude so far?
Oh, I was trying to come up with some ideas of for our economic development agency of we've got these great tourism initiatives, and how can I leverage what we've done from tourism and kind of create some ideation around large scale economic development projects? And it gave me some really great options to consider. I'm not sure, how we pull the trigger on any of those yet, but I like that it just gets the wheels turning on a little bit more, that I can take to my team with some options and see where we go from there.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you for that and indulging my monologue or rant on AI there. Let's get into the real purpose of our conversation today. I'd love to have you maybe first just give us your background and what led you to the position you're at today in Cumberland Valley.
Yeah, so was in college and I always wanted to be in media. I tell this story that actually watching September 11th on the news, I was like, I want to be in news, and that's where I thought my career was going to take me. And anybody who's worked in news knows it's a lot. It's just the worst hours. You're either working very early mornings or very late nights, and you're working every holiday. So after college, I was in the Army National Guard for 6 years, and then took a broadcasting route in college. But in the meantime, I'd taken some public relations courses as well. So I was kind of had both sides of the coin of being able to know how to pitch stories and how to process those stories and make them to make them into news. So I worked for a news organization for about a year. It was a NBC affiliate, and I had a lot of fun in that, but never saw my wife, and just was ready for the PR route as kind of talking, having all these insights of people who left media to join PR. We kind of call it like the dark side because you're making a lot more money than you were in media, and so left media to join PR, and my first kind of gig in PR was in tourism, and so I joined our organization, the Cumberland Valley Visitors Bureau, almost exactly 12 years ago, and have been here ever since. So started out kind of just doing social media and event planning, but then I had so many contacts in the media industry that it kind of evolved my role into public relations, and have kind of been here ever since. It's tough, I talk to friends in the tourism industry, and it's just an industry that you don't see a whole lot of turnover because people really, really enjoy it, getting to talk about destinations and getting to experience what you have. And if you can enjoy what you do, it's really tough to kind of leave that sometimes.
Yeah, the destination marketing industry is fascinating to me because it might be the highest concentration of what I would call recovering journalists that I've ever seen, right? Almost everyone I talk to is like, well, yeah, I was a reporter or I was a journalist or so I think it prepares people so well for this industry because for one, you need to understand the visitor. Well, in order to understand the visitor, you've got to know how to ask questions. And then for two, you need to understand storytelling to be a good journalist or reporter, and all of that plays into being a really good destination marketer. My dad was a journalist when I was growing up, and then he ultimately went back and got his PhD and became a professor, but he teaches journalism and media and a little bit of public relations. And when I decided to do advertising, he said I was going to the dark side. So it's funny to hear you refer to, for journalists, it was public relations that was the dark side.
Yes.
My dad definitely felt like advertising was the dark side. So anyway, it's just kind of a fun anecdote there from the journalism side.
Yeah, I mean it's great to have all these colleagues that I went to school with, and for journalism and broadcasting, and I would say most of them are in the PR game at this point, kind of creating families, and but also just sometimes whether it's better pay opportunities or um, better hours, being able to have holidays at home. It's always a plus.
Awesome. Well, Cumberland Valley is such a cool place for me and kind of a unique place because I actually met Ashley, who worked on your team because she listened to the Destination Marketing podcast. And, you know, one of the things that I'm most proud of, I guess, in my career is that, we've created this podcast and that some of the most meaningful relationships that I have in the industry have come from that podcast. And in fact, I have several clients now that started out as listeners and ultimately became clients of Brand Revolt. And Cumberland Valley is one of those. Ashley reached out to me, and that evolved into a multi-year relationship that continues today, and it's really fun to be able to work with you guys. I know we just finished last year a pretty significant rebrand for you all, but for those that are listening that maybe aren't familiar with Cumberland Valley, I'd love to have you just give the 30,000-foot view of the destination. Tell me about what is Cumberland Valley, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, so it's tough because you don't Cumberland Valley is not a place you're going to find on the map. We are represent Cumberland County in south central Pennsylvania. We have been the fastest or the second the second fastest growing county in Pennsylvania for over the last decade. We actually returned to the top spot this year after about 10 years at number one, versus place for number two for a year or two. But it's got a lot of growth, which I think speaks to our quality of life that we promote from an economic development, but also tourism side. Very much rich in outdoor recreation, agritourism, and built up by some other industries that are here, but that growth continues to happen. And so, South Central Pennsylvania, we've got these very large counties that surround us. So we've got Harrisburg just across the river from us in Dauphin County, um, and major tourism attractions in terms of Gettysburg and Lancaster nearby to us as our neighbors. But we've grown with such just over I mean, continue to grow, and its industries, its workforce, but that we are able to have these great tourism assets that people come to in terms of outdoor rec, where we've got three state parks, and in Pennsylvania, all the state parks are free to enter. The midpoint of the Appalachian Trail. So they all tie to these great outdoor opportunities that we then want to leverage into making sure that we're supporting small businesses with our experience trails, and highlighting outdoor and overnight attractions. So I think Cumberland Valley, we really look at this as a rest weekend for surrounded in the Northeast here by so many great metro areas that are kind of looking for that weekend getaway where they can rest and unwind. And we really feel like Cumberland Valley is the place for that.
Well, and Cumberland Valley is interesting to me too, because I think there's a lot of destinations that have like that one major asset that's the core driver of tourism. And you guys, like you said, you have access to several state parks. You're a great drive from a lot of these metropolitan communities that are nearby. You just have a lot of really high quality tourism assets, and yet there's not like that one big thing. But then I look at you have the highest selling or the number one selling REI in the country because there's so much outdoor recreation in and around the destination, that so many people want to come and experience the outdoors there. I don't know. It's just kind of a funny thing to me about the destination that you don't have that one major thing, and yet there's so much to do that you're clearly getting a ton of people coming in and buying outdoor gear. And I don't know, that's also, it's a challenge and a blessing, I guess, all at the same time.
It is. I mean, and we look at our neighboring counties, and they've got these amazing attractions, whether it's the battlefields or the Amish in Lancaster or Hershey Park, and they're great places to visit. I always tell people, and we know visitors don't see county lines, so yeah, come here, stay for a couple of days, but also yeah, check out Hershey Park for a day or so. But when we're hosting these people, they're coming to our counties to enjoy the Appalachian Trail or the state parks or waterways, and they want to go kayaking or biking. Uh, Really great opportunities that keep them here, and then see the quality of life, see the downtowns that have diverse dining opportunities or shopping opportunities. And so while we don't have those one big attractions, we are completely competitive in terms of hotel data and even from like marketing insights that we see. And I love all my counterparts in those areas, but it is nice to be stand with them despite these amazing attractions they have. And we do have very good attractions, but they're not bringing in the visitors that these other ones are. But it's showing that we have people who want to visit here for uh, outdoor rec or just these things that are smaller but create an entire experience over a weekend or so.
Yeah, I love that challenge though, because it really allows you to flex your creative muscles and do something a little unique and different because you have to, right? To
Mhm.
get attention. And I know you guys just wrapped up a dining campaign that was really fun. And that was actually the conversation that led us to say, yeah, let's do a podcast episode to get together. Tell me about it was your fifth year of Meal Madness. Tell me about
Yeah.
that program because I love it. If you haven't heard of CMO Jam yet, honestly, where have you been? This has been one of the coolest things I've ever had the opportunity to be a part of. In August, we brought together 12 of the most brilliant marketing minds in the destination marketing industry, and we were able to talk through the challenges, difficulties, but also wins and successes. And we talked about the future of destination marketing. We talked about the impact that AI is going to have in our industry. And it was such an amazing opportunity to spend an entire day with some of our brightest peers and watch them interact and discuss the challenges that they're going through on a daily basis and how every destination marketer can plan for the future. CMO Jam was a massive hit, and it's now being released as episodes. You can find them on Brand Revolt's YouTube channel. You can find them on Tourism IQ. I've shared the link to them on my LinkedIn, and I can't wait for you to see what happened at CMO Jam. Give it a listen.
So kind of, pandemic happens March 2020, and we're still operating. We're an economic development agency, so we're trying to make sure that we're getting loans and or particularly grants out the door to businesses who need them. But from a tourism side, it's how do we proceed here? People aren't traveling as much, but we've got we've got to find things for residents to do to get out of the house a little bit. And we've got this restaurant industry that we want to support, and we want to make sure that they're getting that they're getting people to come and pick up and take out. So we started really being focused on this dining experience and a awareness campaign. And so for a year or two, we started with this CV Eats idea where it was going to be really highlighting restaurants. But for years, I love March Madness, and it was like, how do we create that and incorporate that into content? So 2022 rolls around, and like this is how we do it. We highlight, and it's very tough because we've got hundreds of restaurants in the county, but we're gonna take the top 64, and we use our website data, and we use some other website data from other ranking websites to build out the top 64 restaurants in the county, and we have a month-long tournament on
Can I
Instagram.
stop you on that?
Yeah.
So, is there a lot of like competition and lobbying and stuff to get
Oh
into
my
that
gosh.
top 64?
For I would say a year or two ago, we were, and you never know you make it until you start to get like the negative. Like I didn't make it, and so for the first year or so, we're like, are the restaurants even? We're seeing their online participation, and we're like, are they into it? And then we're getting the chefs at like a certain restaurant who are blasting us on social media. You didn't include my place, and it's like, all right, I know there's negativity to that, but no, we've kind of made it now. Like they want to be in this, they want to win this, and it continued to pick up steam. So this we actually created a kind of a wild card spot for each round or each. We've broken it down to 4 regions, like the NCAA does, and have one wild card spot where you can just vote for anybody that we missed. So we picked now the top 15 in each region, and leaving that one wild card spot open. And so this year, our wild card spot was whoever it was the winner. It was a place that we were completely unfamiliar with. It's a shed that makes tacos, and we were completely unfamiliar with it. It got tremendous amount of write-ins that they were kind of they were the 16th seed essentially, and just crushed it throughout the entire tournament. So we have voting every day throughout the month of March on Instagram stories, and they took down a restaurant who had been in it, they've won it in years past. It was unlike anything. We do an internal, we print out like the blank brackets, have an internal competition to see who's going to win, and we always have a little fun with it. And I think one of our staff members had them advancing to the second round, but nobody else had really even heard of them. And so we actually got to stop by earlier this week, bring them their trophy, and have lunch there for the first time. And
And how was it?
it was great. It was, a very authentic taco stand. Everyone on our team really enjoyed it. So, but it was like, and he was so appreciative. I mean, this is not promotion that he's really had before. So he's incredibly, he's doesn't have a marketing budget to promote, his restaurant. He's got a social media page and a ton of loyal patrons that really, supported him throughout this competition this year. So we have these restaurants that are always trying to make, they're frustrated when they're eliminated, or they'll see the bracket come out, they'll say, oh, why did you put me against them? I'm not going to make it to the second round. And so it's always fun to hear that. And then even just the news coverage of this, one of our local outlets covers this like it's an election. Like one year they had a reporter at both of the finalists, and it was kind of like, here's where the voting is. One year, it was last year, they're going through the March Madness results on the sports, 5-minute sports segment on the local newscast, and then they go, oh, in Meal Madness results, here's who moved ahead this week. And so those are the things are like, okay, this has made it. Like there's legitimate interest in this, and we couldn't be prouder of how it has evolved every year and the interest that grows.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite examples of creativity in the destination marketing space, because what you did is you really made something out of nothing. And that's not to say that the dining scene in Cumberland Valley is nothing. That's not it at all. You took a concept, which is March Madness, and for one, there is just a crazed emotional frenzy around March Madness as kind of a cultural event anyway, right? Like that's something that clearly gets attention. And then you said, okay, we're going to build a program that mirrors March Madness and happens somewhat at the same time, and we're going to create a tournament style, bracket style challenge between all of our top 64 restaurants. We're going to build a methodology for how to get included in the top 64. We're going to build a seating system for how to decide which restaurant is against which other restaurant that week. And then you built social media voting, right? Where you're not deciding the winners. You might be helping decide through criteria who the 64 that are participating are, but essentially the movement that is supporting this is the one choosing the winners. And so you've now figured out not only how to create this event, but to activate people to push it forward. And it sounds like it's growing every year. There is no like framework for that. There is no formula. Oh, I'm going to copy this destination or that destination. You came up with something that was really something out of nothing that didn't exist before, and now you're 5 years in, and it's an event that the news covers like an election, right? Like I just think that is such a really cool accomplishment to take what you have from a tourism asset perspective. You've got a lot of great restaurants that people really clearly feel strongly about, and leverage that to get as much attention as possible, and I think you've done that.
Yeah, I mean, and it's great to hear these restaurants talk about. I had someone come in and they didn't know I existed, but because of Yum Madness and they saw the amount of votes we had, and they beat my other favorite restaurant, so I knew you had to be great, so I had to come in here and check it out. So to get that feedback from the restaurants themselves, and so now it's about how are we leveraging people to actually start to dine into to these places more. This year we launched Meal Madness Pass, which was an experience pass that encouraged people to actually check into the restaurants, and we had prizes for the top check-ins. So that's where we evolve this. We want to make sure we're telling better stories. How do we have these two places that are beside each other, perhaps, and we're telling the story of this competition. So that's where this goes next, is telling the stories of the restaurants and continuing to get people in the doors. But it's from the voting perspective, it continues to grow every year, and we could be more thrilled with it.
For destinations that are listening, if you've ever thought to yourself, "Oh, we don't have enough tourism assets, we can't get attention," your limit is your creativity, because you absolutely were able to aggregate your assets and use your creativity to do something really special. I want to talk a little bit about the results. So you said that, of course, the news station covers it. when you take that earned media value and the shared media value, the owned content you created, how do you quantify measuring the success of this initiative?
Yeah, I mean, I think in our mind, always the engagement is always the top priority. So we want to make sure that we're growing in social engagement, social following, and every year we always want to beat the year previous. And then taking kind of that monthly, I'm actually kind of still going through all of the media hits right now, and compiling that together. And then that's something we can take to stakeholders because they want to see how, when you compare metrics and KPIs, how does this actually impact things? So we can show the data of what earned media did, and it's incredibly impressive of where our earned media goes through just this campaign. That we couldn't tell these stories of these restaurants in a way that would get this traction, as to how the restaurants as a whole through many other means, a press release, or it just wouldn't do it. So this creates this story, it creates engagement that we're seeing on social, but then get to see it through all of our metrics throughout the month of March, and bleeds into April even. That every year we're very cognizant of making sure that, all right, it's not broke, so we don't need to fix anything, but how can we make tweaks and adjustments so that we're making sure that next year is even better?
I love it. And the big picture results are awesome, right? Like you got tons of attention and everything. But let's talk about individual results. For example, for the winner, you said it was this taco truck and he doesn't have any marketing budget, and social media is really his only path to getting visibility. How has winning this competition affected his business?
The local NBC affiliate did a story with them the day of the final. We had the final four restaurants left, and it was just like he told the story of how it's a one man shop and he's doing it all by himself. And all the was great at the end of when we announced the winner. The other restaurants that were kind of competing were responding on social like, "I'm so proud of you, keep going what you're doing, you're inspiration in terms of the restaurant industry." So seeing their support was phenomenal as well. But then to see the people that are going there now, and we stopped by the other day, and they're definitely getting more traction, more attention that they ever would have before, had they not been a part of this tournament. He was so happy. He hired a videographer actually to take footage of the day of getting the trophy, getting the bracket that he's able to display there. So he knows how important it is, that he's hiring an outside crew to kind of pick up this, and that he can then use on social media. And so that's going to live there for a while, and we anticipate they'll be back next year. And just where does it go? He's now in kind of the upper echelon. There's four places that have now won because one place has won twice, and so now we're going to build content around these four places that continue, that they're the winners, and they have a special place in our promotions as well.
When you really boil it down to why do we do what we do as destination marketers, what happened to this guy's taco truck is such a great example. Like it's great to go to your board with the metrics of, hey, we increased visitation by this much and we got this many visits to the website, and so on and so forth. You said that your primary metric that you're tracking is engagement and followers, right? On
Mhm.
social media. But what really matters, you guys facilitated this restaurant, which of course had to have a great product in order for this to work, but you facilitated this guy's business to change forever. And sometimes it's better to look at those stories than it is to just look at our aggregated data that we present on an ongoing basis. Because what's really happening is we're affecting the individual businesses that we serve. And I love this case study for that reason, that this is a future altering event for that stakeholder. And I think the destination's job is to build programs and activations that can have that level of positive impact on the individual stakeholders that we serve.
Exactly. And I think when we break things down to our experience trails, and I know that it's definitely a growing industry but when you create a coffee and chocolate trail, you're not going to get a visitor that maybe visits for one or two coffees places. They might be great, but they're not going to make a weekend trip for one or two. But if you're creating this experience, and we've got 20 plus locations, or if it's beer or whatever is in your destination that is, you can tell the story of, but maybe it's not going to, one place isn't going to bring the visitors, but a collection of them. Not only does it make something of an attraction that you've now built, but it also makes something there for your residents, so that when you do have visitors come in, you've got these really strong small businesses.
Yep. And now it's going to be really difficult for somebody to convince me that if Cumberland Valley, the DMO, needs help or support from the community for anything that's happening, or for example, funding protection or funding advocates or anything like that, you've got some pretty tangible evidence to show the community this is why we're important to you. And I think that's really, really valuable as well.
Yeah, I think we always want to make sure that we are looking out for our businesses and our, whether it's through grants or whatever we have here. We want to make sure that we are building these industries for our visitors and for our residents, so we have this strong backbone of a great place to live and work and play.
Yeah. Well, before we wrap up, I just, there's no way you can talk to a destination in Pennsylvania and not ask the question, what are you doing to get ready for America 250?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's an exciting time in Pennsylvania, where yesterday we were just in an event where the America 250 truck was at, and so we were able to just participate and highlight where America 250 events are happening in Cumberland County. But Cumberland County has so many historical moments in the founding of this country that we want to make sure we're highlighting those. So right now, we provided a grant program, a sponsorship program for organizations who want to create events. We know that there's so much history to be told, and so many organizations that have history to be told. They don't always have the funding to make sure that they're able to get that across the finish line. So we just did a support for several organizations to be able to tell those stories, and we're going to highlight them throughout the summer with events and activities around America 250, and really making sure that we're telling the story of how Cumberland County is a part of that growth, and whether it's through military history, which we have a significant amount of, and how that played into not only the conflicts of the early part of this country, but how it shapes the leaders of today's, or whether it's Dickinson College, one of the earliest colleges in the country, or signers of the Declaration of Independence, and where they came from in Cumberland County, or when George Washington visited it here. So making sure that we're telling those stories of where Cumberland County fits in the overall story of America has been important.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to see. I mean, you clearly have the ability to build activations that get attention. I'm excited to see what you guys do for America 250. Any parting thoughts for destination marketers that might be listening?
I mean, this is, to me, is one of the greatest industries you can be in. And because I think the most important thing that I've gone to a couple of middle schools recently and done career day, and what do you talk about when you're talking about destination marketing and tourism. And I think it's the most important thing is just to have fun with what you do. Have fun exploring your destination, because you're the ones that are conveying. If you want people to have fun in your destination, you've got to be able to have fun yourself, and you've got to be able to tell those stories and learn those stories. And so have fun doing it. Visit your businesses and find out the unique stories that are being told there, and then find out how you can share those stories, how you can be a part of it. But I always think that having fun is the most important role of promoting a destination.
Awesome. Aaron, this has been fantastic. We definitely need to have you back on the show another time. Really appreciate you coming and joining us today. If people want to learn more about you or get connected with you, ask you questions about the program that you've built, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, feel free to reach out to me on my email at aaron@visitcumberlandvalley.com. I'm on LinkedIn as well, Aaron Jumper. Find me, reach out, and I'd be happy to chat to you. I love making friends in the industry. It's a really welcoming industry that I continue to grow, and I love seeing people who jump into the industry brand new and they're pros at this. So yeah, reach out to me. I'm happy to help.
Awesome. Thanks, Aaron. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks.
And thanks everybody for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, please don't forget to leave us a rating or a review. It helps us continue to bring you amazing guests like Aaron. Thanks everybody, and have a great week. The websites in our industry are built for the past, not the future. And we've got a major problem with that. These are glorified directories that have been entirely designed to deliver bottom of funnel metrics, clicks, and impressions to the stakeholders that we serve. But we all know that at some point that house of cards is going to come crashing down. And the purpose of a DMO is to inspire travel. We lost that vision along the way when we were building these websites, and the pendulum has got to swing back. We've built, in conjunction with a company called Destination Core, a very unique content-first website product that's built specifically to help engage and inspire visitors to book a trip to the destination. So if your website is at all a pain point for you, make sure you hit me up, adam@thebrandrevolt.com. We'll take a look at what you've got going on. And of course, this only makes sense for people who are building genuine inspirational content for their audiences. And if you are, you need a content-first CMS and website that attracts visitation and inspires visitation to your destination. So hit me up, adam@thebrandrevolt.com.